The first time I followed my husband to the hospital, I thought I was about to catch him cheating. Instead, I discovered a truth that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage, and about him. It started with a lie so small I almost didn't notice it. "Just working late tonight," Daniel said casually, grabbing his keys from the kitchen counter. He barely looked at me when he said it. That alone should have been my first warning. For 12 years, Daniel had always looked at me when he spoke. It was one of the things I loved about him, his steady brown eyes, calm and sincere, as if every word mattered. But lately, something had changed. "Again?" I asked, trying to sound light. He shrugged. "Big project deadline." I nodded, forcing a smile. But as the door closed behind him, a cold feeling settled deep in my stomach. This was the 4th night in 2 weeks he had worked late. And something about it didn't feel right. At first, I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. Marriage does that to you sometimes. After years together, routines change. People get busy. Life happens. But then the little things started piling up. Daniel began guarding his phone. He stepped outside to take calls. He showered immediately when he got home. And worst of all, he seemed distant. Not cruel. Not angry. Just far away. Like part of him was somewhere else. Somewhere I wasn't invited. One night, I saw something that made my heart stop. Daniel had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he took out the trash. It buzzed. I stared at it. I had never been the type of wife who checked her husband's phone. I believed in trust. But that buzzing sound kept echoing in my ears. Finally, I looked down. The notification read, "St. Mary's Hospital appointment reminder." My chest tightened. Hospital? Daniel had never mentioned a hospital appointment. When he came back inside, I forced myself to act normal. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. Too quickly. That night, I barely slept. Why was my husband secretly going to the hospital? Was he sick? Or was someone else there? The next evening, Daniel said the same words again. Working late. This time, I didn't hesitate. The moment his car left the driveway, I grabbed my keys and followed him. My hands were shaking as I drove behind him, keeping a safe distance. Part of me prayed I was wrong. Part of me prayed I'd see him pull into his office parking lot and laugh at my own paranoia. But he didn't. 20 minutes later, his car turned into the parking lot of St. Mary's Hospital. My heart dropped. I parked across the street and watched as Daniel stepped out of his car. He looked nervous. He looked scared. And then he walked inside. I waited in my car for 10 minutes. Then 15. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I crossed the street and entered the hospital. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Nurses moved quickly through the halls. A baby cried somewhere down the corridor. I approached the reception desk. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm looking for my husband. Daniel Carter." The nurse typed something into her computer. Then she looked up. "He's on the pediatric floor." Pediatric. Children. My brain struggled to process the word. "Thank you," I whispered. The elevator ride felt like it lasted forever. When the doors opened, I stepped into a quiet hallway decorated with cartoon animals and pastel walls. A pediatric ward. Why would Daniel be here? We didn't have children. We had tried for years, but after countless doctor visits and heartbreak, we had accepted that it probably wasn't going to happen. Daniel had always said he was okay with that. Just having you is enough, he used to tell me. So why was he here? As I walked down the hallway, I suddenly saw him. Daniel was standing outside one of the rooms. And he wasn't alone. A woman with dark hair stood beside him, crying. Daniel wrapped his arms around her shoulders. My stomach twisted. There it was. The confirmation I had feared. My husband, comforting another woman at the hospital. My first instinct was to turn around and run. But then the door to the hospital room opened. And a small voice called out. Dad? I froze. Dad? Daniel walked inside. The woman followed him. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Slowly, I stepped closer to the doorway. And then I looked inside. A little girl lay in the hospital bed. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her hair was thin and patchy. And 4 lines ran into her arm. Daniel sat beside her, holding her small hand. Hey, sweetheart, he said softly. The girl smiled weakly. You came. Of course I came. He kissed her forehead. I'll always come. The dark-haired woman stood at the other side of the bed, wiping tears from her eyes. I felt like the world had tilted beneath my feet. Dad. She had called him Dad. My husband had a child. I stumbled backward into the hallway, gasping for air. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of believing we shared everything. And somehow, my husband had a secret child. My chest tightened with anger and heartbreak. How could he hide something like that? How could he lie to me all these years? I wanted to storm into that room. I wanted to scream. But my legs wouldn't move. Instead, I stood there in stunned silence until the doctor entered the room. The door closed behind him. And I heard the words that would change everything. Her leukemia is getting worse. Leukemia. The word hit me like a physical blow. Through the slightly open door, I could hear the doctor speaking. We've tried the treatments available, but her body isn't responding the way we hoped. The dark-haired woman sobbed. Daniel's voice was quiet. What are our options? There is one possibility, the doctor said. A bone marrow transplant. Hope flickered in the room. But finding a compatible donor quickly will be difficult. I pressed my back against the wall, my mind racing. Daniel had a daughter. A daughter with leukemia. And he had never told me. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I pushed the door open. Every head in the room turned toward me. Daniel's face went completely pale. Emma? The dark-haired woman looked confused. The little girl looked curious. Who is she? She asked. My voice trembled. I think I should be asking the same question. Daniel stood up slowly. Emma, what are you doing here? I laughed bitterly. I followed you. Silence filled the room. You told me you were working late, I continued. But instead, you were here. With your daughter. The woman's eyes widened. Daniel looked like he might collapse. Emma, please. Let me explain. Explain what? I snapped. That you've been hiding a child from me for 7 years? The little girl looked scared. Mom, she whispered. Daniel closed his eyes in pain. This isn't what it looks like. I folded my arms. Then tell me what it is. Daniel looked at the dark-haired woman. She nodded slowly. Then he turned back to me. Her name is Lily, he said softly. The little girl gave a shy wave. My heart twisted despite my anger. And yes, she's my daughter. The words felt like knives. But I didn't cheat on you, Daniel continued quickly. I laughed again. Really? Because it definitely looks like you did. The dark-haired woman stepped forward. My name is Sarah, she said gently. Her voice trembled. Lily was conceived before you and Daniel met. I blinked. What? Daniel nodded. It was one night. Years ago. Before I knew you. Sarah continued. I didn't tell him. I moved away for work and found out I was pregnant after I left. My mind spun. You never told him? She shook her head. I didn't want to disrupt his life. Daniel's voice was heavy. I only found out 6 months ago. The room fell silent. Lily got sick, Sarah said quietly. And when doctors asked about family medical history, I had to tell the truth. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. She contacted me. Said I had a daughter. I looked at Lily again. Her fragile body. Her tired smile. And suddenly, the anger inside me began to crumble. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly. Daniel's eyes filled with guilt. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what? That you'd leave. The words hung in the air. I had just found out I had a daughter who might be dying, he said. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to tell you. My chest tightened. So instead you lied? I didn't know what else to do. Lily looked between us. Are you mad at my dad? She asked. Her voice was small and worried. The question broke something inside me. I walked slowly toward the bed. No, I said softly. I'm just surprised. She nodded thoughtfully. I was surprised too. Despite everything, a small smile escaped me. Daniel watched me carefully. Emma. I'm so sorry. I looked at him. For the first time, I saw the exhaustion in his face. The fear. The helplessness. He hadn't been sneaking around for an affair. He had been visiting his sick child. Alone. Because he was afraid to lose me. The doctor cleared his throat. We still need to discuss Lily's treatment. Daniel nodded. Right. I hesitated. Then I said the words I never expected to say. Maybe I can help. Everyone looked at me. The transplant, I continued. You said finding a donor would be difficult. The doctor nodded. Yes. I swallowed hard. Test me. Daniel stared at me. Emma. If there's even a chance I could help her, I said quietly, we should try. Lily's eyes lit up. Really? I nodded. Really. 2 weeks later, the results came back. I was a match. Not a perfect one. But close enough to save her life. Daniel cried when the doctor told us. Sarah hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. But the moment that stayed with me forever was when Lily looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Does this mean you're my superhero?" I smiled through my tears. "No," I whispered. "It just means I'm family." And in that moment, I realized something I never expected. I had followed my husband to the hospital believing I would discover betrayal. Instead, I found a daughter I never knew I needed.